Good morning, Unity of Fort Myers, and welcome to Sunday service. My name is Cyndi Swall. I'm going to be spending time with you today talking about conscious leadership. So I'm very excited to share some philosophies with you that we've been utilizing to kind of move into the next phase of what our new normal is going to look like. So thank you for having me this morning. I look forward to spending more time with you.
Well, good morning, Unity family. We're so excited to have Cyndi with us today. I am Jerry, and I am your platform assistant again this week. And it's so wonderful to be connecting with everyone once again on this beautiful, beautiful Sunday. And Cyndi, we are so excited to hear your message on the commitments of conscious leadership. It's coming at a perfect time, so we thank you for this. I hope everybody can feel the excitement in our community because we have so many things going on. And we hope you are staying connected. There's many ways to stay connected. As you know, our three methods, your weekly email, our Facebook page, and the website gives you all the information that you need. One thing that I'd like to point out this week is we have World Day of Prayer, which is being observed as a prayer vigil in the chapel on Thursday, September the 10th from 9 until 5. Now, no sign up is required for this, so please attend, but mask and physical distancing will be required. As you are aware, classes are held on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have our prayer and connection time on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Sam Stone is leading the prosperity class on Tuesday evenings. Reverend Carla's doing the Facebook Live on the gathering. And guess what? We have our coffee talk back today at 10:45, right after service. So please sit back and allow yourself to feel the vibration of this fantastic music.
Am I strong enough to bear the burdens that sometimes come living this thing called life? Am I wise enough to make the right decisions when I'm standing at the fork in the road? Sometimes I wonder and ponder, only to realize I'm not alone, and there's nothing I have to do on my own, because I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. Will I have enough to do the things I need to do to take care of myself? Will I have the health of mind and body to live a life of grace and wholeness? Sometimes I wonder and ponder, only to realize I'm not alone, and there's nothing I have to do on my own, because I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place.
I am the place where God
You
lives,
are the place.
moves and breathes and has
We
its
are the
being.
place
I am the place
where God shows up. I am the place.
I am the place where God
You are the place.
moves and breathes and has
We
its
are the
being.
place
I am the place
where God shows up. I want you to clap your hands and sing it with me. I I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up.
Eddie Watkins, can I have some more of that? Can we have some more of that? A little more? A little more.
I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up.
As you are aware, Unity was founded on prayer, and we are so committed to prayer. We do hope that you stop by the chapel this week from 9 until 5 on Thursday, September the 10th, to be part of the prayer visual. Our prayer chaplains are here for you. Silent Unity is here for you. We hope you're sending in your prayer requests either by email or calling the office. Support is here for you. And we just want to take a moment to settle in to what our prayers are for today.
We start with a big, deep breath through the nose and release. Close your eyes as you feel comfortable. Mother, Father, God, as we come together on this beautiful Sunday morning, we ask that you instill in us the influencers of our environments, of our communities. Instill in us the wisdom, discernment, and the strength that we need to be leaders in challenging times. Thank you for keeping us healthy and safe and rested as we guide ourselves and others to higher ground. Thank you, God, for giving our government leaders wisdom to see the greater whole. Thank you for giving our spiritual leaders awareness and compassion to continue to encourage and unite. And thank you for giving our civic leaders inspiration, courage, and hope, and generosity to meet the needs of their communities. It is with deep, deep gratitude that we are able to come together today through this technology to focus on the capital T truth, which is that all is well. Amen and amen.
Close my eyes, I open my heart, I'll take a deep breath, let the healing start. I lift my hands, I plant my feet, I let love in, I feel the beat that's calling us to rise, rise, spirit rise up, rise in me. I ready my soul, I clear my mind, I'm here and now, in present time. The power of 1,000 suns lighting up the dark. Oh, rise in me. Oh, rise, rise, Spirit, rise up, rise in me, rise in me. I sing to you, you sing to me. Change up this noise, make sweet harmony. Come on and rise, oh rise, Spirit, rise up, rise in me. Oh, rise, rise, Spirit, rise up, rise in me, rise in me. Heart to heart, hand in hand, no turning back, onward to promised land. Do you feel the power of 1,000 suns lighting up the dark? Oh, we rise as one. Love's calling, calling out your name. Love's calling. That's why we came. Love's calling, calling out the name. Love's calling. It's why we came. Come on and rise, rise, Spirit, rise up, rise in me. Oh, rise, come on and rise. Oh, Spirit, rise up, rise in me. Rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. Come on and rise up. Come on, lift your hands up, jump, reach for the sky, go up high, higher, yeah. Rise up. Come on, raise your voice and shout. Love is alive, we're bringing the light brighter, brighter. Rise up. Come on, lift your hands up, jump, reach for the sky, go up high, higher, yeah. Rise up. Come on, raise your voice and shout. Love is alive, we're bringing the light brighter, brighter. Rise up. Come on and rise up.
We are all born with the conscious awareness that we are hardwired for success. And you knew that when you came here. And so it's important for us to recognize that every resource that we have is at our fingertips from the moment we came into the planet. And what this means also is that whatever legacy that you want to leave for your loved ones and for the planet is really just a compilation of every conscious and unconscious thought that we have and every action that we take. And so as this relates to conscious leadership, we're going to talk a little bit more about being more proactive or really even more aware of what is going on in our thinking and how we're showing up in the world, if you will. So as you work through the process of basically finding your right and perfect minister, the process of really being conscious and providing conscious leadership across the scope of the community is one of the most important things that you can focus on right now. So now, if this isn't resonating with you because you think, well, I'm not really in a leadership role within the ministry, I'd really like to challenge your thinking around this, because everyone who is walking the planet is truly an influencer of some kind. You might be an influencer within your family. You might be an influencer at work. You might be an influencer in your neighborhood homes association. But by the presence that you bring, and even just the energy that you bring to the experience, actually creates a resonance field that means that you are in a leadership role. So I really want you to keep that in mind. So when I use the term leadership as we move through this conversation, I'd really like for you to consider that every person out there right now that I'm speaking to is qualified to be in a leadership role, because you already are by default, if you will. So what we know about leadership is that the current modes of operating from a leadership perspective just aren't working. I mean, we can see the breakdowns everywhere, right? We see it in the government. We see it in organizations. We see it in just how we're interacting with one another on social media. So the problems here is that the drive to succeed is not sustainable. These high-performing people are fraying at the edges, right? Families are falling apart. Marriages are broken. There are communication breakdowns happening like we have never seen in the history of the planet. And so what we know for sure is that the things that we've put into place to create leaders, if you will, is not a system that's sustainable. So we have to take a look at what that breakdown is, because people are struggling to find purpose right now. In fact, I see this in my coaching practice. Probably less than 3 to 5 years ago, everybody would come to me because they wanted to up-level their life in some way. And I will tell you, the biggest consideration that I have now when people call me is that they just want to exhale. They want to be able to create some level of contentment, some peace of mind, so that they can be consciously proactive in creating the life that they want. So it's not just about up-leveling your life anymore. It's about figuring out, how can I be in leadership without trying to, reach for that brass ring all of the time. In fact, organizations have fallen prey to unbelievable healthcare expenses. The United States now is second only to Japan for stress-related death. In fact, Japan has in their insurance policies a clause for what they call karoshi. Now, karoshi literally translates into death by overworking. So obviously, the things that we are putting in place to make us more accomplished are just not working for us anymore. So unity principle number 3, let's go there. Unity principle number 3 reads like this: we are co-creators with God, creating reality through thoughts held in mind. So we know that, right? So my question to you then is, so what? So what? I mean, it rolls off the tongue in New Thought, just like as easy as anything, but where are we actually practicing that in the course of our daily lives? And that's really what I want to talk about today, is how much credence do we give that? Now, this theory now is probably more recently described as law of attraction. So we hear that more often than we do co-create. So this law of attraction. So we have hundreds or thousands really of gurus out there that will charge you any number of dollars to teach you how to activate the law of attraction, like it's a skill. But it's not a skill. It's a universal principle. It's in play whether we know what it is or not, or whether we know how to utilize it or not. So I want you to think of it in the lines of, let's say, the law of gravity. Like, you don't get up in the morning and think to yourself, I'd really like to apply a little more gravity in my life today. It's like, it's already happening. And so it's hard for us to get our head around because it's not something we can tangibly see. But now we have enough evidence to support that. We've got data to support that. And I'll be able to share some of those studies with you as we move through this conversation. But in fact, if I'm totally transparent, one thing I need to share with you is I struggle a little bit with the term co-create in the first place. And I think the reason that I do is that it implies that we're actually crafting something that doesn't already exist. And if we look at the universal laws, certainly the law of attraction, it's not so much about bringing something into your experience, it's about recognizing what it is. Eckhart Tolle says, the way he describes this is that most people live in what he calls a chronic state of dysfunction. And the reason that's important related to the law of attraction is that in the public world, if you will, feelings are considered somewhat of a sign of weakness. So when we make decisions based on a feeling that we have or just a gut reaction, then we have to somehow try to support that in some way with tangible evidence. And so, but what we know is that the feeling is really the point of manifestation. And we know also that your feelings are really the things that drive your actions. In fact, I know this from doing consumer reporting over the years and my marketing experience is that buying decisions are still made by consumers based on emotion. Now, they might look at the consumer report and they might factor in the price of things, but at the end of the day, we see this even in hiring, like leaders do this in hiring situations. So over and over again, in human resources, if you have a candidate that's qualified at this level and you have a candidate on paper that's qualified at this level, but you like this person better, guess which one you're going to hire, right? It's always going to be the person that you have an emotional connection to because you have to live with that person. So in the book, 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, it's a great read, by the way, if you want to look it up. They believe that the cornerstone of unconscious leaders are distortion and denial. Distortion and denial, which are all around awareness, if you will. And the author believes that there's actually like a line of demarcation. And I want to show this visual to you really quickly. If you want to take a look at it, I'm going to share my screen. Leading from above the line. Now, if you just take a look at this, just a quick glance, leading from above the line, if you look at that line of demarcation, he basically states that unconscious leaders are reacting from a place below the line. So they're more closed off in their ability to communicate. They become defensive when they're challenged. They're totally committed to making sure that they're right all the time. And obviously, if you look at above the line, being open, curious, committed to learning more, being more collaborative, it's pretty obvious when you look at this particular graph that it's better to be above the line, if you will. But what's kind of interesting, what he tells us is that the reality is that 95% of the population, about 95% of the time, believes that they're above the line, but in reality, they're not. We just tell ourselves that we're above the line. Because of the pace that we're living, and I'm going to jump out of this real quick, because of the pace that we're living, the amygdala, or the primitive part of your brain, the reptilian brain, if you will, the amygdala kicks in because we're not always conscious of the data we're taking in around us all the time. And that amygdala kicks in and it puts us in reaction mode. And so when you're in reaction mode, you're not really assessing all of the solutions that are available to you. You're really just reacting to what's going on around you. And so what happens is that primitive brain takes over and it sends out kind of a chemical cocktail, if you will, that makes you believe that you are being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. So you've probably heard the concept of the fight or flight, and that's really what's going on for us most of the time. And as a result of that, we're not thinking about what it is that we really want to experience. So when we talk about law of attraction, 80% of the time, we're thinking about what we don't want, and we can't figure out why we keep getting it. So we have to be able to stop and be more conscious in these moments. So if we know what makes us happier then, so like if we're conscious of it, we know what makes us happier, why do we not just go there and I'm thinking all the time? And the answer there is really the same, and that is distraction, interference. I saw a TED Talk recently. Matthew Killingsworth, he's a psychologist, did a study on cognitive mind wandering. And throughout his study, what they determined with over 300,000 people across a huge demographic is that 55% of the time, you're thinking about something other than what you're doing. Now, that in and of itself is not the problem, but here's the rub, is that within 3 minutes after mind wandering, people were infinitely less happy than they were before their mind wandered. Now, why is that? Because, mind wandering is not necessarily a problem. That's where creativity and innovation comes from. However, when your mind is wandering, are you thinking about things like rainbows and butterflies and unicorns and things like that? No, you're probably worried about a bill you have to pay or what's going on in the political climate or COVID or whatever else is going on, right? And so as a result of that, that is impacting us. So generally speaking, basic law of physics, two things can occupy the same space at the same time, including your thoughts, right? And so we can't say, I don't want to think about that, because trying not to think about something is like, don't think about pink elephants, right? And so now you're thinking about that. It's really about replacement. And that's really where we want to go with being more conscious in our thinking and conscious in our leadership. So as a coach, I know for sure that there's no amount of action that can make up for that faulty thinking. So I'd love to talk to you today about the three key areas, the just observations that I made, not just from my own spiritual journey, but through my coaching practice, of some practices that we can get into that help us stay above the line more often than not. So quickly, I'm going to share my screen with you again so you can write these down. The first thing I want to share with you is that thoughts are things, period. Right? It doesn't mean that some thoughts are active and some thoughts are not active, or only the thoughts we want to have active are active. It's kind of like they say, anything that we're thinking of is, if you're worrying, it's negative goal setting. There's no way to not have a thought be active. Now, the second point, though, and bear with me if this feels like a contradiction to you, because I promise I'll make this clear. The second one is that the thought itself is not actually what manifests, and that might surprise you. And then the third one is that you are not your thoughts. Just because you're having a thought doesn't mean that that thought is true. And we tend to think that it is based on our belief systems. So I wanted to share that with you. Let's start with thoughts or things. As a coach, I can talk to someone for 10 minutes and tell you exactly what you have been thinking about and talking about for the last year of your life. And the reason I know that, though I'd like to think is my highly developed Spidey coaching senses, is really almost always just a case of self-fulfilling prophecy, meaning you are experiencing what it is that you continue to talk about over and over and over again. That's the deal. In fact, even Mother Teresa knew this. For years, a lot of activists tried to get her to be involved in their anti-war rallies. And Mother Teresa kept saying, I'm not interested in your anti-war rally. When you want to have a peace rally, call me. Understanding that what you give attention to is so important. In fact, there are big changes coming up for your community in the near future, hopefully, right? Really good changes that are happening for you. And for some of you, that might be super exciting and everybody's anticipating and really on board with it. But possibly for some of you who've been in the community for a while, it might feel a little bit scary and there might be some trepidation around it, or you're really grieving the history of the organization the way it was before. And all of that is okay. It's just really important to remember that staying above the line and really looking at a progressive ministry going forward is the gift that you give to each other through this process. Because waging war on anything, whatever it is, whether it's a war on terrorism or a war on cancer or a war on drugs, whatever it is, a war against a politician, pushing against it actually gives it more power. And that's the part that is really concerning to me when I look at social media. And even folks that I 100% agree with politically are posting things that I think, God, if we keep pushing against this, we're actually going to propagate this problem. It's going to take us longer to solve it if we keep focusing on the things that we are most concerned about. So the principle number 3, unity principle number 3 about co-creating with God through our thinking is so important when it comes to things like this. And this is why the DARE programs haven't worked in the schools. Like, you can't keep pushing against something. So I want you to understand that as we wage war against something, we're actually fueling the fire. We're actually giving it more power. And this isn't just woo-woo stuff, by the way. You can pick your study. Heart Math Institute, those of you who might be familiar with Heart Math, they've built their entire business model, really, and their whole scientific process around really studying the physiology and how our psychology impacts that over time. It's enormous. Way back in the 80s, Dennis Waitley was working with Olympic athletes. And one of the things that they brought him in to do was work with like a visualization model, if you will. And so they would have these Olympic athletes like wired to these highly expensive biofeedback machines. And they would have them run their race or their activity just in their head, right? To close their eyes and just from beginning to end, prepping for it, running through the race, how it felt when they came through the finish line. And what they found was interesting is that the athletes, when they were hooked up, is that the neurotransmitters that fired in their brains were the exact same ones in the same order as if they were actually running a race. Now, the reason this is important to us is that the mind cannot tell the difference between what you're thinking and what's actually happening. So that's why Dennis Waitley says, if you go there in the mind, you can go there in the body. So now, like, it's not just a thing in theory. Now we have some tangible evidence to support that. So, number 2, the thought itself does not manifest. So this one's a little tougher for us to get our head around. And here spawns my suspicion, by the way, around the co-creation process. I read an article in Unity magazine, and I bet it was a 10-year-old article, a long time ago. but it was fascinating to me because the author asked the question, what's the purpose of a mirror? Because the mirror is not real, right? The mirror is just a reflection of whatever is put in front of the mirror. But here's the thing, is that we look at the mirror, and if we see something in the mirror that we don't like, we don't try to change the mirror. And this is one of the most common misconceptions that we have, is that the mirror can be changed. Like if we could just change what's in the mirror, then we can change our lives. And so I want you to understand that what happens is, while the mirror is a really useful tool, like you couldn't even see your face if you didn't have the mirror, it's really just there to show you what it is that's happening in the reality. And so this misconception that we're talking about is that we have to understand that anything that is actually manifested for real is really just a reflection of what Charles Fillmore calls substance, or the great unmanifested is what he calls that. And so in the great unmanifested, I think the Bible calls this the kingdom of God. So basically all this stuff that we want, that we desire, that we believe to be true, sits somewhere. Some people call it, I think Abraham Hicks calls it the vortex. But the understanding is that there's nothing new under the sun, right? It's not that we have to create something. As soon as you have a thought, a desire that you have, that you put out there, it's already exists somewhere. So it's not a matter of us trying to create it or make it happen. It's for us to be able to align our thoughts with that so that we can bring it into the manifested, if you will. So, when you think about it, we discovered penicillin, in 1929? But penicillin has always been there. We didn't really discover it. I was in the telecom industry for years, and we discovered the cell phone and how you can make communication happen through these energy waves. Well, we didn't invent the energy waves. All we did is recognize that they're there. So we become aware of the energy waves. So we don't pray to God to be nice to us and please bring us what we want. It's done. It's already done. So if it's been given, then I set out to discover then the $1 million question, which is, how do you get something from the unmanifested into the manifested? So if we're not literally creating, we have to align our belief systems. And this is where sometimes it gets complicated for us, because a lot of times we've had beliefs that we've harbored for a really long time. And so when we look in the mirror, what we are seeing in the mirror, I think it's possible for us to be able to look in that mirror and say, okay, is what I'm seeing something that I want to be seeing? So if we see something in the mirror that we don't like, then we have to stop and ask ourselves a question: what must I be thinking? Yikes. So sometimes when we look in the mirror, we are going to discover things that we don't like to believe that we're running through our head throughout the course of the day. And this is especially difficult when we are up against or challenging a deeply held belief that we've had for a really long time. So what we know for sure is that it's impossible to look in the mirror and not see your outfit. And it's impossible to step into the world and not see your thoughts. So think about that. We don't try to change the mirror. The mirror is a reflection. So don't blame the mirror. What we do is we look in the mirror and we say thank you to the mirror. Because what the mirror is doing is actually reflecting back to us what we need to be aware of in order for us to create a new image in the mirror going forward. But if we don't know it's there, we can't see it. One of the things that the author of Conscious Leadership talks about is that it doesn't matter whether you're above the line or below the line. What matters is that you're aware of where you are at any given moment. Because that self-awareness is what helps you to shift, for that shift to occur, for us to move from below the line to above the line again. So if we know for sure that everything that's ever been created since the beginning of time started with a thought, then I want to show you a model that I call the cycle of manifestation, that shows you more clearly how the thought itself is not really where the manifestation happens, but where it falls in the process. So take a look at this. If I were to ask you the question, like, where does tangible creation begin? Most people would say at the point of action. But that's not accurate, The actions that you take are really just a symptom of how you're feeling about what's going on. And your feelings are driven by the words you say and the thoughts that you think. So let me give you an example. Let's say the point of creation in our thinking starts at the level of thought. And a belief is just a thought that you think over and over again. So are your beliefs true? Maybe, maybe not. They're true to you. So because they're true to you, that's what you talk about all the time. So your thought determines how you talk about something, which determines how you feel about it, which determines what actions you take. So you'll notice that this is cyclical, and here's why. I'll tell you a quick story from my personal experience that you might be able to relate to. I told you that I worked for a telecom company for a while, and about once a year, they had a pattern of doing significant layoffs, based on their business model. And so one year, the year that I chose to take the voluntary separation package to work for myself, about 3 weeks after that, a good chunk of my department was actually let go. And about a week after that, I received an invitation in my email for a luncheon that they called the Cool People Lunch. Well, who doesn't want to go to the Cool People Lunch? So even though I was no longer a part of the organization and I hadn't been laid off, I wanted to go be a good support system. And in reality, the purpose for the luncheon was actually well intended. It was for people to share job leads and kind of support each other through the transition. So I went with my friend Mickey, who went with me also, who was one that had been laid off. And so we went together, and it turned out to be about a 2.5-hour complaint session is what it was. How bad the economy is, how unfair the package was. Now there's all these people out of work, and there's not going to be any jobs out there. And it was the most painful experience of my life. So we decided on the way home that we were not going to be cool people going forward. But think about this. If you believe that the economy's bad, that there's no jobs, that you're not qualified, that life is unfair, and that's what you're talking about, how do you think those people were feeling? They were feeling sad and scared and hopeless, maybe even depressed. So if you're feeling sad and scared and hopeless and depressed, what actions do you think they were taking? Either no action at all. If you really believe there's no jobs out there, you're not going to take any action. And if you do, it's certainly not going to be inspired action. But here's the problem. If you're not taking any action or you're not taking any positive action, what do you think your result is going to be? I'll tell you what the result is. That was almost 12 years ago. There is still a Cool People Lunch. Why is there still a Cool People Lunch? Because their belief systems and what they talk about consistently are how bad the economy is and there's no jobs out there. So as you'll start to see, it's like there's some twisted distortion, like satisfaction that we get from being right about the fact that there's no jobs out there. It's like, see, I told you there's no jobs out there, and then it creates this cycle again. And so it's important for us, which, by the way, this doesn't just happen. This manifestation cycle doesn't just happen with negative thinking. It also happens with your positive thoughts as well. So just keep that in mind as we move through this. To understand the point of manifestation is really at the place of feelings. What is it you are feeling? If anybody saw the movie The Secret, I think Lisa Nichols talked about your emotional guidance system. It's the same concept. It was like whatever it is that you're feeling, making sure that you're staying above the line with your feelings versus below the line. Now, keep in mind, the average person has about 65 to 70,000 thoughts a day. So I'm not asking you to monitor all of your thoughts. It's not only not possible, it's neurotic, so don't do it. But it is important to recognize, like, what's the significant patterns that I'm running into in my thinking so that I'm not propagating one of these things. And here's another, I would say, common misnomer in the new thought arena. And that is that every time you are moving closer to what it is that you desire, that it's always supposed to feel good. And I'm here to tell you, sometimes it feels anxious. Sometimes you're going to feel scared or endangered, maybe even terrified. Because I see this happen all the time when we have the conversations around having 100% responsibility for your thinking in your life. For some people, they'll look at that and be euphoric. They'll think that's fantastic news. That's exciting. It means I get to do whatever I want. And somebody might hear those same words and reel into the fetal position, because to think that I alone am responsible for my experience is scary. I mean, like, I'm not qualified for that. And so it's a really scary position to be in. So just recognizing that the words themselves or the thought itself is neither positive or negative. It's whatever response it is that we're having to it. In fact, adrenaline and anxiety are the exact same endorphin released from your body. Professional athletes have learned to capture that and use it as what they call eustress, which is the ability to create adrenaline to move you forward. But if you make a different decision, if you have a different response to that, you can go to distress. And obviously, distress is going to keep you below the line. So this is especially difficult, once again, if you're doing battle with a long-held belief. I want you to think about it from the perspective of, say, pouring concrete. So when you're pouring concrete, think of your thoughts as the mold. And a mold that you leave for an extended period of time becomes a belief. And what happens is, when you believe that belief for an extended period of time, you can create a right sturdy foundation for how you believe the world should operate. And that's what starts to happen with our belief systems and our thinking. So I want you to be thinking about the perspective of conscious leadership by really saying, okay, I'm not in control of every thought that I think, but I am in control of my response to those thoughts, which leads us to our third and final point, which is that you are not your thoughts. So if I have anybody on the call who's in the psychology field, you will recognize the term emotional reasoning. And emotional reasoning, in essence, means that because I'm feeling this way, it must be true, whatever it is. So whether, for example, I'm scared, therefore there's something to be afraid of. There's something I need to be concerned about. Or I'm really angry, so obviously my rights have been violated in some way. Or I'm really sad, so that means something is about to happen. So it's the classic monster under the bed scenario. It's not necessarily really there, but it feels really real at the time. And so when we're feeling these things, it leads us to my second favorite psych term, which is confirmation bias, meaning that we seek out evidence to support whatever we believe to be true already. And if anybody questions the confirmation bias, all you have to do is to be on social media during an election year, say right now, and you will notice that you can find data to support whatever it is you believe, whatever it is you believe about yourself to be true about you. If you believe that you're stupid, or you believe you're too old or too young, if you believe that you don't have a certain skill set, then all of those things, you will consistently be finding evidence of that in your experience. Or you will start to attract people who will treat you that way because it reinforces your belief system around that. So if we talk about the classic scenario, which is why Unity, by the way, tells you to expect a miracle, right? I want you to visualize this concrete scenario, because basically when these long-held beliefs turn into the foundation, it's very, very difficult for us to make decisions based from anywhere else, because what starts to happen is you start to believe in your own story. And when you believe in that story, then you think it's the truth, which means that you don't seek out other options or other solutions to things because you determine it's already this thing. So I really want you to challenge your own thinking around that. So once you have a belief around something, to say, okay, here's what I'm feeling and thinking about this scenario right now. Now I'm going to go out and I'm going to seek out evidence that's counter to what I'm believing around that. And so that is resilient behavior, and that is conscious leadership. I'm from Missouri. It's the show me state. It says it right on our license plates. So I was raised on the axiom, I'll believe it when I see it. And so when you think about, when we start to look at like the idea of leading from a place of consciousness, it challenges the logic of your ego and it freaks your ego out. It doesn't make any sense to it. Because in order for us to be able to move into this place of creative manifestation, of aligning the things that we want to see in the mirror, once we start to do that, it requires us to start with the position of believing it before you can actually tangibly see it. It's counter to what most people buy into. And so what I'd really like to challenge you to think about as we move into our meditation is to think about, is it possible Is it possible for you to just simply know that everything that you've ever hoped for already exists somewhere? Can you consider the possibility that you don't have to earn anything, that all you have to do is just allow it? Can you believe that you are the beloved child of a really generous Father, and that he wants to give to you based on the desires that you have of your heart? Seek ye first the kingdom of God, which is the great unmanifested, and his righteousness, your awareness. And all these things shall be added unto you. Truer words have never been spoken. What I'd like for us to do now is just get comfortable in our seats as we move into our meditation time. Big deep breath in through the nose. And to the count of 4, out through the mouth. Let's just begin by taking a moment to just allow your body to settle into your chair. So drop your hands into your lap. Straighten your spine. Continue to breathe through the nose and slowly out through the mouth. Let the weight of your body be held by your chair. You choose to close your eyes. You're comfortable. Today, we're going to explore leading with purpose. Regardless of your position, whether you're in an organization or a family you're called on to lead at some point, the best leaders have a sense of clarity and purpose. They know what gifts they bring to the table and how they're going to engage with the world. Deep breath through the nose and out through the mouth. Good leaders connect with people at every human level. Letting your attention rest on your breath, I'm going to ask you a question. And as I ask this question, I don't want you to overthink it. Just notice the thoughts and the feelings and the images that come to mind for you. Breathe in and slowly breathe out. What do you feel is your greatest gift as an influencer? Maybe you're a good listener. Perhaps you make people feel welcome. Or you continue to hold the high watch for others. What is your gift? You may have many, but what is your primary gift? What comes to mind first for you? And I want you to visualize yourself excelling in that role. And all around you, I'd like for you to visualize your non-physical support system, your spirit guides and angels, whatever they look like for you. Maybe they have a form, maybe they have wings, maybe they're just light. They're circled all the way around you, with their arms reaching towards you, palms up, sending you light and strength, letting you know that they're there to lift you up always as you bring your gifts and talents to the world. Breathe in through the nose, slowly out through the mouth. I want you to acknowledge them so they know you see them, with a nod or a smile or a wave. And I'd like for you to reach your arms out and welcome them invite them to stay with you always. Because they are always there. Now you get to acknowledge that you know they're always there. Breathing in and breathing out. Bringing attention back to your body. Your attention is attaching to any particular thought or feeling that arises. If it feels good for you, bring it back to the room with you. Now imagine yourself waking every morning and asking yourself, how to express this gift today. And hold that vision as we begin to reemerge from this reflection. Finishing with a full deep breath through the nose. And out slowly, as you feel comfortable to open your eyes. Thank you for the gift that you are to this community, to the world, to yourself. Namaste.
And now for the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from error. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Now's the time that we just want to thank everybody for their generosity and giving to our church. We're so grateful for your support. I want us to all just take this moment and connect to that abundance within yourself and listen to the guidance on the best way to give to our community. There are several ways to give. You can mail a check to the church. You can hand your check in on Thursday when you stop by the chapel for the prayer vigil. You can text the word Give Unity Fort Myers to 44321. You can also click the donate button in the upper right-hand corner of our website. And I don't know whether anybody noticed this week, but you can also click the link right in your weekly email, and it takes you right to the website to donate. So thank you so much for your generosity. And now, if we can just bless these offerings. So now is the time in the service where we get to bless all the children. And like I said last week, we get to bless the children within each and every one of us. So please rub your hands together and say with me now, you are loved, special, and important. We behold and bless the Christ you are. And as we approach the closing of our service and we continue to raise our peaceful vibration and we expand that vibration out into the world, let us say together, let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me, with us. And now please join me in saying the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am that light. The love of God enfolds us. I am that love. The power of God protects us. I am that power. The presence of God watches over us. I am that presence. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. Thank you, everyone, for joining in on service today. Thank you so much, Cyndi, for your presentation. There's so much to be gleaned from the information you said to us today. Don't forget to join us for Coffee Talk at 10:45. Hope to see you there. Thank you, everyone, and have a beautiful Sunday. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me be a part of your Sunday. Namaste. Thank you.
Peace in my life is growing because I choose love. Love's always present, it's what I'm made of. I choose love. We are a part of each other. We are one tie that binds us, that can't be undone. I choose love. Peace in my family is growing because I choose love. Let love be present, it's what we're made of. I choose love. We are a part of each other. We are one loving family, sharing one sun.